Cool.
Right. The way of Buddhism. The origins of Buddhism, I suppose, not the way of Buddhism. uh my immediate gut reaction was I found this chapter really fascinating and very well organized. I think while we were chatting, you said it really well, Bala, was that it was just very cleanly given information. And I felt like I learned quite a bit. It reminds me of how, I'm going to say many years ago, but your obviously definition of many is subjective. I developed some core beliefs that I had forgotten had their roots in Hinduism.
There.
And so this chapter was like a refresher and a reminder of that. It was like, oh yeah, that's where those ideas came from.
Yeah, for me, it was not even a reminder. Like, I was not aware of a lot of this stuff because I basically started with Buddhism and I didn't look too much around.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, we're amazing in Buddhism. Like, damn this Buddhism. And then, like, how dare you, Hindus? Like, that's our idea. What are you talking about,
What
right?
are you talking about? Well, yeah, so it's really cool to go through this, like, where did this go? How did this influence this? Kind of where it came from. And I think it's beautiful. I think the interconnectedness of information and how things morph and change over time is really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and also kind of, you can't make this up in one go,
Mm-hmm.
like in its entirety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and even if you did, like if you come up with something totally insane and you write entire library about it, right?
Right.
If people cannot relate it to something they know, it's probably just gonna get dropped, right? So the continuity sort of needs to be there for multiple
Absolutely.
reasons.
I was kind of hoping Max would be on the voice chat today so that they could give a bit of insight into their perceptions, but maybe you have some good ideas about this. The idea that really when Buddhism came into the realms where Taoism was prevalent, it helped make Buddhism a more possible way of life for human beings and a more normal, like, everyday attainability. And I think as I reflect immediately is this idea of like the stoic monk on the hilltop versus the layman, right?
Yep.
So Max has a lot of history crammed in their head, so I was hoping.
Yeah, I'm a little bit out of my depth, but we'll try. Um,
But it was interesting.
One thing that kind of I stopped at was I for some reason I thought Confucianism was really
Hello.
bad.
Max,
Oh
I
my god!
summoned you from the
Yeah,
ether.
we summoned him.
I was just saying I wanted you here.
Well, here I am.
Because Alan starts out this chapter by making a declaration that Taoism helped make Buddhism more human and more attainable to the everyday person.
Huh.
Ah, indeed. Also, I know nothing about Confucianism, but this really kind of piqued my interest
Yeah.
because when I hear Alan Watts explaining it as reasonable, unfanatical, humanistic, I thought it was the exact opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I clearly must have missed something somewhere.
Huh. Yep. Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting then to realize where maybe your interpretation is so different. It's I don't know, definitely hit a couple of those moments in the chapter as well. Oops.
Yep. I actually know where it's coming from, and yeah, it's. I read a book called The Tao of Pooh, like Winnie the
I
Pooh.
guess.
Okay,
Oh yeah, I
well,
love Winnie the Pooh.
it's cool. It's probably not the most authoritative source of wisdom now that I
Right.
think about it. So
No,
I
it's
mean,
actually a pretty good book.
it's good. It's good. Yeah.
um, Alan has a statement here, which is that Far Eastern Buddhism is much more palatable and according to nature than its Indian and Tibetan counterparts. Does anybody have any commentary on that?
I mean, I can't really speak on that because I haven't gone there and looked at them.
You know, I I don't want to judge them too harshly. It definitely looks like, I mean, let's say, when I went to like the monasteries and stuff, like it was weird, right? You have like these giant statues and like bizarre demons. I was like, what on earth is going on, right? But I think if I understood it symbolically
Yeah.
and properly, it would actually make much more sense. So maybe it's this sort of misunderstanding as well. I mean, I don't want to blame Alan Watts of misunderstanding something, but I don't know. I don't know.
Well, he did do a lot of research and get a lot of context for what's going on, so I don't think it's just if only I knew the culture better.
That's what I think too. But the way I was understanding is that it's actually very humanistic and very people friendly, but it's all like clouded by this like symbolic, nature of all the divine beings and whatever.
Right. There's a lot of mythology tied in to
Yes.
the Buddhism of India and Tibet. So I could see that making it less accessible to those who haven't grown up in a culture with that mythos like just floating around.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that would be where that statement is coming from, is just that the Eastern Buddhism seems to come with less baggage, maybe?
I can see that.
It certainly has less historical baggage.
Yeah.
I can see that. But I think the baggage, like, if you're living in that culture, I think the baggage might be actually like helpful. But I don't know. I never lived in that culture, so hard to tell.
I think that you're on point with that idea of just because when we can tie things into our culture and see them around it, humans are more likely to understand better. That's why I like my weird metaphors or tying it into these ideas. And I often come up with some weird food metaphor, right? And it's because everybody eats food, right? And so
Clever.
I think that you're right on point with like the mythos that gets really wrapped up in the history. It's almost necessary to bring it down to the level people need it to absorb it.
So you say you're a finger pointing to the cheese.
Yes, the big cheese in the sky.
Lovely.
So I did enjoy that historically Alan does cover the difficulties with interpreting the Sanskrit and the Pali texts.
Yeah.
He discusses the difficulty of the history, how long things were a verbal tradition, oral tradition, before they were ever written down, and how, I don't remember where in the chapter, but he talks about how, oh, there it is. It's right at the bottom of this page. A well-meaning teacher would attribute the words that they said maybe to the Buddha, not as like a material that, yes, he definitely said this, but in kind of like the spiritual way of, if this, as I have gotten to this attained awakening, these words are truth, and they get attributed to the Buddha and get written down in that way later on. It's really interesting to think about.
I can see that. Yeah. Where was it?
I have it highlighted kind of here
No,
at
no, no, no,
the
no, no.
bottom
I'm
left.
sorry. I'm just trying to remember. I read somewhere that like in some tradition, basically like any words that have certain quality are basically like Buddha's words, even though they are not said by him. So yeah, yeah, I can see that happening a lot.
Well,
But then
and
you know what? If you're enlightened, I'm gonna listen to you, no problem. Right?
right, and I'm not inherently against that per se. I'm at least not against the intent behind it, I suppose, because as I've gone forward with like book club, a lot of my motivations are that there's truth in all sorts of words and places, and you've just got to be open to seeing it. And so in that same way, like true is true, no matter where it comes from or who says it, you know. And an open heart, I think, or open mind can recognize that when it happens.
Yeah.
So, like, with the Buddha mind and the whole, you know, there is no soul, there is only oneness thing. Any enlightened being is the Buddha. So, like, that's why that's probably like that. Is like, oh, you're enlightened, and you said this thing. Oh, well, clearly then the Buddha said this thing because
Yeah.
you know. So, like, I see where they're coming from with that, if that's what they're doing.
But in this regard, we're talking about monks from like 200 AD.
Yeah.
So, everything's oral tradition, and I can't even imagine trying to keep that much information in my head.
Right. That's why there was so much repetition, because, like, man, that shit's gonna get twisted somewhere.
Oh my gosh. Just to imagine how much was crammed in someone's head to be able to orally recite everything. It's just
That's
wild.
part of why the monks were so respected, is because they could just whip this shit out.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know, if we didn't have like TV and internet, that would be us.
That's true.
Oh yeah. But that's kind of the cool thing, right? Like tangent. This is like one of my I find this an intriguing psychological phenomenon, is that we've changed the way we remember things. Instead of remembering things rote and like word for word, instead it's like a file cabinet. You begin to remember where you can find that information. All right, where's the file on this? Okay, that's where this is located. Bam, I looked it up. Now I can tell you what it says. You know what I mean? Like, you begin to almost become an index or a table of contents in your brain instead of having to be the entire book.
Right. And like keywords to type into Google search.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you memorize these keywords and these thoughts, and then you're easily. And so in that way, I think it does broaden the diversity of things we can talk about, because our minds aren't entirely consumed by a small section of things we have to memorize. And so, anyway, I think it's interesting.
Yep.
I think you're interesting.
You're interesting.
No, you.
They're both interesting.
Yay! Club
We did it.
interesting.
Yeah.
I like the Upanishads. Upanishads. I'm sorry, words are hard. I like the Upanishads. Blah 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 blah, and a lot. I remember I haven't read them in a long time per se, but as I was telling Bala earlier, I remembered briefly that I actually developed a couple of my core beliefs, spiritually speaking, based on them, and had completely forgotten that's where they came from.
So that's where you started?
No. I started. I was raised. I was associated with, and I started spiritually in a Christian setting.
Okay.
Mixed in with a lot of other garbage and weird crap from other sources. But when I really dived into Asian philosophy and I started reading the Upanishads, I would really credit them to my eventual path to where I'm at now, because they instilled in me this grander respect for being a part of everything and an expression of everything, if that makes sense.
Gotcha.
This opening my brain and my mind and my perceptions from such a limited perspective to this more universal perspective of expression, and if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. It's I don't know enough about Christianity. I would think it's in there as well, but maybe not as accessible.
It is. There's a lot of overlap. Some of the core thoughts that I held on to for many years have stayed with me my entire life, pretty much, of what I learned in Christianity. But it has broadened significantly.
Gotcha.
It went from a narrow understanding, because it's almost like Christianity is baby food. And
Oh my God.
you know, you have to start with the mush, the milk. And
The milk mush.
the milk.
That's a
Well, you start
terrifying
with the
image.
milk, and then you get the mush, and then you get real food, right? And it's like spiritually, that's almost how it feels. And the Christian Bible does have an analogy like this spiritually, of where we talk about, when I was a baby, I ate baby food, and when I was an adult, I ate real food, right? And
When I was a Christian, I ate Christian food.
and when I was a Christian, I ate Christian food, and it was mushy peas. And when I
Mushy peas of Jesus.
the mushy peas of Jesus. This is gonna be a T-shirt. We're all gonna wear it. Anyway, and so as I progressed out of that realm and into other places, it feels like I began to eat adult food, if that makes sense. I began to sample things of a greater variety and more nourishing than I had ever eaten before.
And you got fat.
Now I'm a glutton, and I need to like scale back.
Find Jesus again.
I gotta go backwards a little bit, rethink my diet. That's a whole thing.
One cracker a day.
Real-
Wait, sorry. You skipped to the next page. You have highlighted
Uh-huh.
the Lord of Immortality, that wax is greater still by food. Why did you highlight that?
Oh my god. Yeah, on that previous page.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So that was one of the. So it was funny that he brought this particular passage into the book to me, because it was actually one of the ones that I remembered kicking off of, right?
Really?
Mm-hmm. This is a familiar passage to me, and it was really interesting. And
Okay.
and when I hear these phrases about the Lord of Immortality, it strikes those Christian chords and notes in my brain, right? Where I come from in my spiritual heritage, if you will, of recognizing the grandness of something like that. And then I don't know how
Wow.
significantly on point is it to think of this, and I don't know. So
That is absolutely amazing, and I'm touched. I also highlighted the phrase
oh
because
really?
I had an image in my head of somebody using food for removing like the hair from their legs.
Mm-hmm.
When I read that, I was like, "What?" Like wax.
Well, yeah. So and I don't know if this doesn't translate well, but when something says wax is greater, I think of the moon and how it waxes to become bigger. When we say a waxing moon,
that's
we mean a
probably what you're
moon
supposed to
becoming
think.
full.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I was
so,
just thinking about wax.
but I like your. That's funny.
All right. Cool. All right. I'm educated. This is perfect.
And just something about this language really just talks to something in a younger version of me, which as many hours as I've spent with you guys in book club, I have spent many hours still on my Christian childhood, like researching and learning. So we're still catching up.
Well, I don't think there's any reason to like abandon it or anything, right?
No, I often do cross-reference research.
Yeah, exactly.
Abandon it all, Des.
Alright,
Leave the
sorry
raft in the
for,
river.
like throwing you back. Let's. that was very selfish. Let's keep going.
But that's the whole thing. This isn't meant to be a discussion about, hey, let's just talk about Des, and Des is everything.
We should make a Des club and talk about Des.
Des Club. Welcome to Des Club. We'll talk about Des all day, every day. He talks about the repetitious play that goes on in this system of dismantling. The god dismantles himself over and over
Leela?
and
This
over
is the
again.
play of Leela? Is that what we're doing? Nice. I haven't read the book in a while, but I can still remember things.
Overall, and then it gets into this point, which I think is really important to come down to, of like crude. Let's see, if at this stage we were to translate it directly into philosophical statement, it would be a crude type of pantheism with which Hindu philosophy is generally and erroneously confused. And I find that interesting.
Well, if everybody is God, then there are many gods. So pantheism, hooray!
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be, yeah, that
It'd
would
be
be very crude.
erroneous. Yeah, it's not quite right. And so I want to say again, like, I really appreciate Alan Watts's methodology here, where he takes you further back and in from a different angle than I think one would expect reading the chapter header Origins of Buddhism, right? I think a newer learner or practitioner may not realize how interconnected so many things are in ways of thought.
Oh, yeah.
And so I really appreciate that Alan takes the time to do this in the book.
Me too, Des.
I really liked he's talking about this repetition and the cycles and how this can feel very monotonous to a human being. Alan says, but from the divine standpoint, it has all the fascination of the repetitious games of children, which go on and on because time has been forgotten and has reduced itself to a single wondrous instant.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I thought it was really nice.
That makes me feel much better about all the kalpas.
Yeah. The kalpas do feel monotonous. You're like, dang, it just keeps going on and on and on. Damn. I don't want to be a part of that. Cool. But anyway, yeah, that statement's just really, I find it lovely. And then we get to kind of what I was talking about a little bit earlier about my little enlightenment thing of the Brahman of that art thou, to suggest that self-knowledge is a realization of one's original identity with God.
Tatvamasi.
And just this like he gets into this, right? So he talks about how this shouldn't be confused with the Hebrew Christian context, right? And so really stopping to reflect on the other potential distinctions of God. And the use of the terminology was really enlightening to me as a younger person.
Yeah.
So
there was this part, and I can't find it now. He was talking about like factual understanding versus like spiritual understanding of things. Yeah. Which was a distinction that's felt like something I should be aware of more, but I wasn't really. That you can understand things in like these different ways. Because I understand everything factually, of course, right?
Right.
Can't find it now. Never mind.
That's fine. We might get there.
It was related to this idea, right? That you're not really, God, right? So don't have people like bow to you, stuff like that. Yeah.
I am not this body, these sensations, these feelings, these thoughts, this consciousness. And it's so cool to see this in some other texts. I know we talk about it on and off here in the Sangha of not being attached to the labels you give yourself, and also the ideas of being a very specific thing. I don't think we put anything, Des. I don't think we put it in those words. I kind of do because I'm terrible at words.
Just don't be anything.
Don't be a thing.
Be the ball. No, don't be the ball.
No, don't be the ball, but be the ball. Like, we're all the ball.
Listen, there is no ball.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can be a Buddhist.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so dumb. I'm sorry.
You're so dumb. It's beautiful.
Oh god, I gotta type that somewhere. Hold on. I'm gonna put that in the Sangha book club chat.
Yeah, this is just trying to find it. Never mind. Is it a good idea to tell people that they don't have self?
I mean, it depends how you tell them and what they understand by that.
Yeah.
Right. But so I would say generally no, right?
Are they trying to be a Buddhist?
Nope.
Then no. So then we get into this discussion about skillful means that comes up every so often.
No skillful means. Let's not do that.
I wouldn't just go up to the layman and say, "Hey, there is no self."
Did you know that you don't exist? And then smile and walk away.
Right? Like that's kind of. It's funny, but it's not.
It's funny in that asshole kind of way.
Funny in an asshole kind of way. Yeah, that's fair.
So I mean, I wouldn't just be walking up to people and going, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that." It's not very nice.
I guess.
Sam.
Hello.
Welcome to book club.
Sam and I just recently woke up, so we're still in morning brain.
That's fine.
Yeah. So I'll probably just sit quietly.
That's okay. Whatever you feel like doing today.
Okay.
Lots of stuff about Upanishads and their
And we have not even started with Buddhism, right?
Yeah, isn't it cool? I like it.
Yeah.
And then it talks about the Maya doctrine. And I feel like as Alan gets into a bunch of this stuff and then comes up on the Maya doctrine in regards to Buddhism, it feels like, how is this related? But also, like, I needed to know all of that before I really got to this. You know, I don't know. It was very well executed. Prerequisite for studying Hinduism and Buddhism is understanding the Maya doctrine. Very cool. Therefore, a doctrine of relativity.
Yes, I agree.
So this is the part of the book where I'm like, yes, facts. Yes, you should read this. You should know these things. These are the things you need to be studying or like at least contemplating a little bit. And I don't necessarily, I go back on this a lot and it sounds very counter to other stuff I say, which is like, I don't think you actually have to study a lot to reach enlightenment, but I think it can be fun and helpful.
Well, whatever you figure out with your mind independently is probably going to be certain amount like on the mark, right? But you can't formulate it so cleanly and precisely and neatly and with like all the consequences and whatever, right? As these people have done it, right? So if you recognize your experience in what others have said and written, it really boosts you in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
I like really, there's a part that they say, you know, Hindus and Buddhists prefer to speak of reality as non-dual rather than one.
Mm-hmm.
Because concept of one must be in relation to that of many. And so they replace it with a negation of a concept that's related to the concept of many because it's dual. And like, how have you helped yourself really? But I kind of get it, but like, seriously.
Constant reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they made it worse with non-dual, but whatever. Like, non-dual. Right? If somebody comes to me and says one, I said not two, right? And
Yeah.
you know, that's
Not
Trump.
They
two.
say not one, not two.
Not one,
What?
not two.
What?
They say not one, not two.
Oh, even worse. Oh, damn.
It's even worse.
Well, they're saying because using numbers to describe this is pointless. So we're gonna use not numbers. If we
Not
have
numbers.
to describe it, preferably we wouldn't talk about it at all. It would just be there and you could see it.
Yeah. Ah, yes. I love that part.
All right. Okay.
momentarily, Alan takes a moment to talk about try to use the human body as an example. And he talks about how, normally we see it as one thing, but really it's made up of a lot of organs and parts, blah, blah, blah. What he does not mention, however, is the incredible amount of, bacteria that also make up our bodies and make it, possible to survive as beings. I'm always amazed how important our gut flora is.
Oh, yeah.
To function as a human being.
This was written 50 years ago. They didn't have that.
Alan should have just known.
Oh, okay.
Right.
But no, it's just side note, guys. Also, it gets even weirder when you think about the human body, especially with modern information about science, right?
Yeah, the body is more non-human than human.
Yeah, it's wild. And then you mess up the bacteria in your guts.
It'll mess up your mind.
It'll mess up your mind. It's, yeah, is it not crazy how much we rely on these little bacteria to not go away or overpopulate one kind over the other? It's just...
Yeah, that is crazy.
I rely on a tiny universe of bacteria to make sure that I can function. What if I'm just a bacteria in the universe of somebody else's gut? Anyway, anyway, it sends me on a whole thing existentially. These are what I think about going to sleep at night, right? It's just anyway.
But you still depend on things. Why not bacteria?
Yeah.
I mean, how is a stupid neuron some sort of slimy, fatty, whatever with these little tentacles? How is that better than a nice, neat, pretty bacteria in a gut?
Yeah.
What an interesting distinction you've made. That bacteria are neat and pretty, and neurons are slimy.
I accept it. This is fine.
But why shouldn't they be? Right? We're just culturally, we are predisposed to think of bacteria as dirty, nasty, right?
Yeah.
But it could be the other way.
I don't tend to qualify them one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well, you're beyond this, right? That's a different thing, but yeah.
This has been a tangent into my fascination with bacteria and our relationship with them. So, goes into some illusionary stuff, more Maya, and then I don't remember why I highlighted this. This is why
it's a good point.
Yeah, it's good point.
I highlighted it as well.
Oh, yeah?
I also don't remember why.
This is why the Hindu-Buddhist insistence on the impermanence of the world is not the pessimistic and nihilistic doctrine which Western critics normally suppose it to be.
Right. I guess I just like to criticize Western critics.
Yeah. It's always fun. I think that it's really interesting to criticize Western critics because I get into this weird mindscape and realizing that I don't run in circles where I am faced with people who are opposed or think like this at all. And so I don't know how prolific they are, right? I don't actually talk to a lot of people who criticize Buddhism because...
I don't run into many people who criticize Buddhism.
Right?
Yeah,
I would enjoy conversations with them, I think.
Sure. And you must be I feel like at some point I must come across somebody who would criticize Buddhism if faced with a conversation about it, but it's just not coming up. Right? It's not coming up. It's not happened. I'm not checking with every person I talk to in a day and be like, by the way, what are your thoughts on Buddhism? Have you heard about our Lord and Savior non-existence?
Yeah, it doesn't come up very much. It's how much do you hear about the political climate of New Zealand, right?
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about New Zealand except Vegemite. That's literally kiwi birds and Vegemite. That's the end of my knowledge.
I didn't even know about Vegemite, so.
I actually the entirety of my knowledge about New Zealand comes from an episode of Rocket Power that aired on Nickelodeon when I was a child.
Oh my god. Oh my god, Des. We're so old.
Let me just date myself for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's a tangent. I'm sorry. How did we get there?
I don't.
Never mind.
Oh god, good times. May just get more into kind of the I'm gonna say logistics of the tradition and talking about the story we're mostly familiar with about Buddha leaving the castle, spending some years doing this and that, and then trying to be this and that, and then he just simply gave up.
Yeah, that was the key.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just give up, you don't get anything. So don't give up.
Don't give up, but kind of do, but differently.
Give up when you realize that's the only choice you have left.
Yeah,
Right.
it's wild. Ugh. These ways of thought are so wild sometimes. Jeez. All right. What was
So
I
he got
thinking?
nothing.
Yep.
Is that I obtained not the least thing from unexcelled complete awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Sad.
That's yeah. Well, that's got to do with attainment. How can you attain what already is? Like, did I find my eyeballs? No, I just have them.
You just have them.
Yeah, see, that's the funny thing. Like in so many of these texts, there's always this like mouse print, right? Like there's an obvious understanding, and there's this like hidden, little trick, which still matches what is said, but it means something completely different. And
That's
it's
got to
all like
do with
that.
it's got to do with how we interpret the words we read, because like these have been translated so they're literal in terms of what they're trying to explain.
Mm-hmm.
But as a society, we have different implications, different reads on certain words that aren't as formally interpretive as they
Mm-hmm.
may be intended. So it's easy for us to read something and be like, oh, I get it, and then have someone else be like, okay, but do you know that this word is actually meaning what it says, or are you just reading it in the colloquial version of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, Alan says it pretty well earlier in the chapter of like, don't read it with your nose to the page.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good way of putting it. Then we get to the Zen pointing that we talked about earlier. And then we get to the Four Noble Truths, which are always worth talking about.
Well, yeah.
Dukkha.
Nice refresher.
It is a good refresher. I think it's a really good refresher. Overall, if you don't read the first part of this book, maybe stop and read the second part. Like, I don't know. There's just sometimes you come across a bit of information. All right, well, if you don't read anything else, read this one. Like, read this part. And I think this was really good if you want a refresher on things like that.
He had a really funny translation of dukkha as sour. As in life is sour. I didn't hear that before. That's really cool.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah. Alan's fun. He's not afraid to do like kind of weird things. Then we get, so once again, just as a refresher for anyone who is listening, dukkha is that to suffering, decay, sickness, to be bound with things which we dislike and to be parted from things which we like. These are also dukkha. Just things like that. Second noble truth. Trishna.
Okay, first noble truth, life is dukkha, so we'll just connect that in there.
Pretty good. Lots of information. Not gonna read all of it out loud.
Shit. Second noble truth, it's pretty good. Let's keep moving.
Let's keep moving. I am an excellent teacher.
Oh my god.
I provide such quality discussion. You have no idea. The round of birth and death. process of reincarnation, karma, stuff. The third
Good
noble
list.
truth. Let's see. What is this one about? I forget. What is the third noble truth? Nirvana?
There's a cessation.
There is an end to suffering?
Yep.
Yep.
You skipped the whole. There's a path. Oh no, you didn't. That's the
No,
fourth
no,
one.
no. That
That's
comes
the next
later.
one. I got ahead of myself.
You didn't just say, and now we're done with the noble truths. Ending at 3. The 4 noble truths. There you go.
Mentioning the noble truth 2.5.
Yeah.
It's like, keep reading. It's gonna get better, you know? Like,
The 4 noble truth. So here we get into one of the things I think is the funniest about Buddhism is our list within lists. So we have a list of the 4 noble truths. Point 4 is another list. And
Yep.
it's the Eightfold Path.
Yep.
it was fun to read his translations because they are different than the one I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not going to try to pronounce the fancy words on the left, but I will read out loud the English words on the right.
Samyak Dristi.
Complete view.
Really?
Samyak Samkalpa.
Complete understanding.
Samyak Vak.
Complete speech.
Samyak Karmanta.
Complete action. Well, that makes sense.
No, it doesn't. Oh, because karma. Okay,
Yeah.
cool, continue.
I was like, an origin word. And I like suddenly was like, I get it.
Samyaga Jiva.
Complete vocation.
Samyag Vyayama.
Complete application.
Samyak Smriti.
Complete recollectedness.
Samyak Samadhi.
Complete contemplation. You know, it sounded like I had a Google Translate, like, talking. Like, I was pushing some kind of button and making it say the words.
Push my buttons all the time, Des.
So yeah, I think you're right, Bala. The translation he chooses to go with some of the Eightfold Path is interesting, but it's not wrong. It's just different.
It's not wrong. Yeah. Vocation versus livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't like recollectedness. This is such a weird word. I don't even know, where to start understanding it. I collect myself. The action of collecting myself again.
Mm-hmm.
What does it even mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Recollectedness, I think, means
That's mindfulness, no?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. I can't remember what the 7th one was. I'm a bad Buddhist, y'all. Don't listen to me.
Isn't that too hard? Why is it so hard?
I don't know. I guess we could Google it real quick.
I think it is mindfulness. It is mindfulness.
Okay.
That's the usual.
Because I'm more familiar with Smriti than I am with recollectedness.
That's funny.
That's what I'm saying, right? This is just like horrible word.
I liked his little concise summary of Buddhism, which is above all the practice of clear awareness. Vibe with that. I like it.
Yeah.
Good job.
Hooray. Yathabhutam.
You thumbed. Through such awareness, it is seen that separation of the thinker from the thought, the knower from the known, the subject from the object is purely abstract.
Eh?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I buy it.
I buy it. Seems legit.
Yep.
Yep. From a Buddhist standpoint, it is simply the proper way to sit. So he talks about meditation, and it's not like And so this is interesting. I've been observing some discussion in the Sangha. Fun facts: Des doesn't participate in a lot of talk in the Sangha, but I read almost everything.
Oh no.
Mostly because I get so tired.
I'm so tired. Oh.
Well, I don't know if you guys get this level of tired, but like where your bones hurt and everything is heavy and you feel like you're underneath the pressure of like walking through a vat of honey. I don't know.
I can't relate to this. I don't have bones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I,
I'm too
I
enlightened
didn't,
for bones.
Amazing.
I didn't get to the bone level, but the joints are pretty bad.
Yeah. I'm probably talking about my joints. We just might be kind of like...
You just don't know what bones are because they're fake.
Yeah, that's fair.
You've heard of fake news. Get ready for fake bones.
I think where I was going with this line of thought was just this idea of that the different ways people perceive what meditation is and its utility, I suppose. What it's...
Yes.
I've observed quite a variety of standpoints going on in discussion, and not just here in the Sangha, but, you know, obviously anywhere on the internet, you can find a variety of people like, this is what meditation is and what it means. And I think Alan says it the most close to what I thought before, which was, from a Buddhist standpoint, is simply the proper way to sit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought this was a Zen Buddhist standpoint.
I would say the Zen Buddhists definitely make a bigger show of this being a fact.
Oh, okay. They're just more vocal about it.
I think they're more vocal about it. I think when one unwraps themselves from certain things, at least in the middle way, there is a similar view of meditation. Grain of salt, obviously, for me. Des comes with a jumbly basket brain, so... But
well...
Mm-hmm.
There's always this confusion that, like, you're, like, prior to learning all these things and after learning all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
yeah.
After you learn that everything is one, etc., yeah, it's just sitting, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before you do that, you don't see that yet, so it is actually an exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be, though. That's one of the interesting things with the meditation is, you can literally just be a passive practice where you sit there and take the world in, and your mind, without your active input, will connect these dots for you faster than you would be able to if you're going into it and deliberately trying to connect these dots from the sutras and all of that. That's why Zen Buddhism's teachings are all about, look, just sit there, shut up, and you'll figure it out, okay? Don't ask too many questions. Maybe we'll ask you a koan to help jumble your brain up some more because it's too thinking and not enough seeing.
Okay. It is still exercise, though, because at least at some point, this is something you don't want to do, and you have to make yourself do that.
Sure. Therefore, I'm not saying there's no effort involved. Like, there's absolutely a lot of effort involved.
Right. There's effort involved to let it happen on its own.
Yeah, because that's part of why Buddhism is so powerful and challenging, is that we've been conditioned to think, oh, we can do it under our own. We can just, if we try hard enough, if I push this.
Yeah.
What happened?
Nothing?
He went mute.
Nature of reality. You can't push
Max
reality.
lost service for a minute.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where it broke out, so I'm just gonna pretend you heard me.
Sweet.
We heard the beginning and the end.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
That's fair. But yeah, so anyway, it's just that I guess to summarize, I just feel like sometimes people try to give themselves a more complicated relationship with meditation than necessary.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I've seen some like crazy meditation techniques. And I'm like, I guess if you want to build that skill up, sure, but like, do you want to meditate though?
Have you considered actually meditating?
Yeah, I had.
What you're doing sounds really stressful, and I just like.
Right. I knew this one person trying to stick their tongue up back into their throat, up into their nose to release some sort of fluid, because that's a yogic technique, and I'm like, does this teach you anything?
I think I know it. Is it like the shining skull of glowing explosion? Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
It's
I'm
amazing.
just like, bro, you don't need to do all this.
There's actually a yoga technique for farting too.
Yeah, there's a lot of yoga techniques out there, man. I don't know.
Wild.
But anyway, yeah, I actually I was asked by someone recently. It's like, so tell me exactly what benefit do you derive from meditation? And
all of them.
I didn't want to sound sage. I had no idea what to say, really.
I've got a whole
just
list
told
of
them,
facts ready to go, but
I told them that I just like sitting on my butt.
that's a great answer.
That's a very
great
zen answer.
Oh my god.
Very good, Bala.
Thank you.
You get a gold star this week for Buddhism. Congrats.
If you get enough of those, you can trade it into the Buddhist store and buy some karma.
Yeah.
Wow. I could sell bad karma at a discount.
Then you'd
Ooh.
lose some karma. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's an interest rate on that. You have to pay a fee. It's really inconvenient.
Karma's complicated.
Mara doesn't look kindly on those types of transactions.
I highlighted this little last part here in the last section of so hypnotic, so persuasive is the power of convention that we begin to feel these ghosts as realities and make of them our lovers, our ideals, our prized possessions. But the anxiety-laden problem of what will happen to me when I die is, after all, like asking what happens to my first fist when I open my hand, or where my lap goes when I stand up. Perhaps then we are now able to understand the celebrated summary of the Buddha's doctrine given in the...
So close.
Thank you.
The Sudhimaga.
And so I thought, like, I loved how he ended this chapter. Suffering alone exists, none who suffer. The dead there is, but no
Deed.
doer thereof. Whatever, deed. Whatever.
It's a different word, Des.
It's not! All words are the same.
Oh, shit. It's not different.
It's whatever. Anyway, you can see on screen. Here's the actual end of the chapter. Don't listen to me. My words are bad. But I liked how he ended it. It was very good. Any closing thoughts?
I've got a translation of this that I put up on my blog that says, everyone suffers, no one exists. It's not quite as eloquent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know where this is all coming from, but
Coming from Alan Watts.
Yep.
I know. What I'm trying to say is like, sorry. I'm just trying to formulate it.
No worries.
It's like, so yes. The power of convention and the words and the like yes. I get all that, but is it really so freaking bad? Is it so awful that just by using some silly words, which are like little innocent, practical, sounds, you lose the liberation and everything? That just doesn't sound fair. Mm-hmm. Right? Like the price seems to be too high.
I don't think that's what's being said.
Oh, okay.
I think it is more of a warning that we can still use words in a conventional way. We can still communicate with each other and, work on that typical understanding using that normal framework, right? But if indeed we are trying to become enlightened, we are trying to reach that enlightened state, then we have to look through the way we process language. We have to look through the way we process our society and our own expectations and all of it. So, like, the way we speak is part of that. And in fact, we are frequently so hypnotized by just the structures, like the sentence structure of English, for example, that we don't even recognize our own thinking is being colored by the way we speak, the grammar of language itself. So if that is having such an effect, at least being aware of it can help you a great deal in terms of understanding what are you really saying, what is someone else really saying, versus what are you interpreting in a lazy way.
Yeah.
That's fair. I'm not entirely buying that it's language, because let's say if I was like some sort of Mowgli growing in a jungle, I don't think I'll be enlightened. Or will I? Right? So
that depends.
depends on the Mowgli.
You
Okay.
yeah, you could be.
Okay.
Language
fair.
isn't. I don't think this is saying language is a bad thing. For the record, this isn't saying that. It's saying that language is a potential complication.
Fair. Okay. And the other thing is like, so I find myself hypnotized by Buddhism.
Be
right?
careful.
Like no, but in a bad way. Like I would think something, and then I'm like, oh, but that doesn't conform to the Buddhist way, and I just like toss it immediately.
That's the attachment to Buddhism. That's
Uh huh.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. It's oftentimes people will try and give you the final attachment, which is the attachment to non-attachment. And you burn up all of the other ones first, and then you get rid of that one. You've got the attachment to Buddhism, which is a little bit of a bigger category. It still can be useful, but it can also be very obfuscating, and it can cause confusions. So what I would recommend is going with what the Buddha said, in that he said, don't trust anything simply because it is said, but only trust it once you have confirmed it in your heart. So
yes,
even if Buddha has said this, don't trust it. So what if it doesn't confirm Buddhism? Test it. See if it's true. Buddhism isn't all-encompassing. Buddhism has, maybe, dare I say, a few mistakes. So I think it's fair to give things the room to be criticized, not necessarily dismissed out of hand, and certainly not just believed because it sounds good.
That's fair, but at the same time, there's teachings that say like, like life is really short. Hurry up, because
Yeah. That's to counteract the whole, well, I'm coming back in the next life. I don't have to do it this time. I'll do it next time.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not to counteract the doubt, like not doubt, like the testing for self. Okay, yeah, that's
Right.
consistent.
No. It's to simply say, look, just keep focused, will you? Don't give
Yeah.
up just because you think you've got more time.
Fair. Okay, that makes sense.
We did it.
Woo!
Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect. I feel better.
Thank you.
Nice.
Okay.